continue our knowledge sharing mission through a series of interviews with marketing leaders from all over the world, and are thrilled to have Alexander with us today. Alexander, can you kindly introduce yourself?
Hi, welcome to CMO Chats. I'm Alex De Leon. I'm the Group VP of Marketing at the PropertyGuru Group.
Amazing. Could you tell us about yourself and your role at PropertyGuru Group?
So I've spent most of my career in big tech. So I was at Google for about 5 years, and then I was at Facebook and Instagram. I guess we call it Meta now, but it wasn't called Meta before I left, so it's still a bit strange to call it that. I was doing primarily product marketing there. I led product marketing for Instagram across Asia Pacific. Spent some time at HBO. I was part of the team that was helping to launch HBO Max across Southeast Asia. And then I've now been at PropertyGuru Group for almost 2 years. I originally joined on the consumer marketing side, and now I lead both the consumer and the customer marketing teams for PropertyGuru.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Alex. And what's your main marketing focus at the moment?
I would say that our marketing focus doesn't really change. And it's been relatively consistent for me in almost all the roles that I've been in, which is that our role is to grow the business and grow the brand. It's one of the things where kind of our North Star, we're really laser focused on making sure that we're improving the bottom line, that we're seen as a growth driver of the company. So what changes on a regular basis are the tactics that we're using to be able to achieve those objectives.
Thanks for sharing that. And I guess from your perspective, how do you define success in marketing?
This is a really interesting question. I think when you're in kind of the marketing bubble, it's really easy to get caught up in the thousands and thousands of different types of metrics. So if you're on the brand side, you're like, your reach and your preference and your brand survey scores and your branding keywords and all of that stuff. And then when you're on the performance, that's kind of a whole other bucket of metrics. But the way that I look at it is marketing must be locked in step with whatever the business directives and the goals are. So if you're trying to, enter a new market, you're trying to grow your user base, you're trying to drive your revenue, whatever that business metric is. And then the marketing job is then to translate what are the marketing tactics and initiatives and the KPIs within marketing itself that can then help you achieve those specific business objectives. So one of the things that actually someone on my team coined is it's the levers of levers, right? So you understand what is the ultimate goal that you're trying to drive, and then what are the levers that enable you to be able to achieve those specific objectives.
That's really interesting. Now, we've talked about, how to, what do you think is success in marketing? But now I want to check, or what do you think is the biggest challenges that marketers are facing today?
In all my time in big tech, I was basically working kind of in the marketing industry, but I was helping to work with brands all across Asia Pacific to help them figure out how to use Google and then also Facebook most effectively. And in some ways, this was kind of giving me a front row seat to across all verticals, across all countries, what are the best marketers actually doing today? And one of the things that I found was that in a lot of ways, many brands, I think, overcomplicate what marketing should be and how they're supposed to operate. Generally speaking, what I've really come to believe over time is that creativity really wins in this space. And the challenge that a lot of brands have is, in some cases, a lack of courage and conviction. You see every single day when you're on your social media feeds, for example, brands, creators, people that are doing interesting things. And then what happens is that people come to the office, they put on their kind of marketer hat on, and they think about, okay, we've got to do this kind of thing in this style, in this specific brand, and it's got to be brand safe, and we've got to land all these key messages on hard sell, and this one static post is going to solve all the problems of our marketing team. I think that the biggest challenge really is a lot of the bureaucracy that a lot of brands face. Is by the time that you get from the concept to the actual execution, you've gone through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people commenting on the color and the logo and the copy and the creative and the overall story and the placements. So you end up getting a lot of these sort of diluted type of campaigns where you've lost the soul and the authenticity and the key message of what you're trying to drive. And instead you've got this sort of kind of Wikipedia style campaign where it's like the consensus of 100 people's creative judgment, right? And a lot of that obviously is very subjective. So one of the things that I've really tried to do as much as possible in my career is empower a very small, lean team of people to be able to go everywhere from the ideation to the execution. So for example, at PropertyGuru, we do everything in-house. We used to work with a whole bunch of agencies across every part of the marketing funnel and function. But when I joined, I said, let's see what happens if we actually put everything in-house, hire a really small group of super smart people that are high agency, that are able to solve problems, that are able to figure things out, and then let them run with it. So in some cases, a lot of my job is just empowering them and getting out of their way.
Really agree, Alex. I think we've also heard this kind of challenge coming from other marketing leaders. And it's always that alignment with your stakeholders, because like what you said, right, you end up with this diluted campaign and the overall thought of it is really lost, along the way. So yeah, that's really interesting. And so I'm also curious to know, right, what's the most successful event or engagement piece that you've hosted and why?
One of the big sort of thesis I had coming into this particular role is that PropertyGuru as a marketplace is really well known across the markets where we operate. So we're the largest prop tech company in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. One of the challenges that I think we have as a brand is that although our awareness is really high, we don't necessarily have that kind of brand equity and that brand love that I think most of the timeless leading brands do across the world. So the way that I typically approach these types of challenges is think through, okay, what's the big problem that we're trying to solve? And then what are some hypotheses of how we could approach that? And one of the hypotheses that I had was deepening our engagement through culture and then branded content. So in the last 2 years, we've made this very aggressive push into moving into the culture space. So last year, we released a reality TV show called Home Run. And it was inspired by a lot of the property reality TV shows that you see everywhere around the world, like the Owning Manhattans and the Selling Sunsets of the world. And we just sort of wondered, maybe we can produce our own property reality TV show as well. So we released that last year. Really, really successful piece of work. We got about 10 million views across all the pieces of content that we have. And we won an award fairly recently with Marketing Interactive, and then we're nominated for a couple of Effies as well. So that was one kind of bucket of work that we did. And then kind of continuing on that same train of thought, we actually just wrapped up a campaign for NDP 60 here in Singapore. And we collaborated with a really famous local streetwear designer called Mr. Sabotage. And we created a tribute jacket to the property agents in Singapore and the duality of their lives. And so it's inspired by those Japanese patch jackets. And basically, it's a two-sided jacket, kind of business on one side with gray and pinstripes. And on the flip side, it's this really beautiful style jacket that Mr. Sabotage designed. This was featured in Grazia, in Vogue. We've had it featured in Straight Times as well. So it's been this really successful kind of piece of work that we've done at the same time. So all of this focus that we've had on brand, on branding content, on integrating ourselves into culture has not only been exciting for us as a company, it's really galvanized the company on these interesting things that we're focused on. But at the same time, it's also helped our bottom line as well. So the marketing metrics that we're really trying to drive at the very bottom of the funnel are things like sessions and leads. All of those things are at an all-time high. And because our brand has now really grown and is stronger than ever, we actually don't have to invest in performance marketing anymore. So in Singapore, we've suspended all performance marketing ever since December of last year. So all of the bottom funnel performance that we get is all happening organic. So it's people coming to our site directly or through Google search.
Oh, wow, that's really impressive. And it's really good. And congratulations on the show. I hope I can also, take a watch on that.
Yeah,
but
we've got season 2 coming up pretty soon. So
I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so now we go into the advice part of the questions, right? So my question to you is, what career advice would you give to anyone starting in the marketing industry?
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is there's a science part of marketing, which is really important, right? Learning how does performance marketing work? What are all the tools that are available with brand as well? How do you measure brand? What does the whole process look like from creation to execution? But I think marketing, maybe more so than any other corporate function, is one that really requires you to be hands-on and actually being a practitioner yourself. So it's almost like cooking, right? You can learn specific skills of how to cook, but then when you actually do things and you make things and you see how it actually is getting out the door and how people are responding to it and then iterating over time, that for me is really the best process I know of to learn the craft of marketing, but then more importantly, to do it well enough to be able to impact the business as well. So my biggest piece of advice would be, yes, there is marketing theory and there's academia, kind of how to sort of theoretically think about marketing, but there's no substitute for actually getting your hands dirty, learn every part of the marketing function and get things out the door.
Absolutely agree. And in terms of the next question, what do you believe is the biggest opportunity for marketing leaders today that might not have been available in the past?
Well, I'm going to go with a semi-cop-out answer of AI. And the reason I say this is because I think in some cases, AI, at least within marketing, is overhyped, but also underhyped at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of this famous quote of people will overestimate what will happen in 1 year and then underestimate what's possible in 10 years. And that's kind of the way that I think about AI as well, is that every single time you go to any of these marketing events or thought leadership tables or conferences, everyone is kind of freaking out about AI, right? And I think to some extent, rightfully so, AI, I'm certain will impact all parts of the marketing function, from creative to SEO to how you actually create content as well. But at the same time, what I've generally found is that a lot of the marketers right now are still kind of in theory mode, which is that they're philosophizing on what could happen or all of these doomsday scenarios. What I think is really important, and what my team has been able to do in the last year, is jump into it head on. And so instead of being afraid of all the new technologies that are coming, let's embrace them fully and then see what happens, because not every single use case of AI is going to apply within marketing and then more specifically to the needs of our individual business. So we've got live pilots that are going on right now, from everything to refreshing our brand in a way that's augmented through AI tools, to how we collect more data and use that to inform our targeting, to content creation, and then improving our SEO as well. So all of these things may not be permanent killers of what we do, but it's all giving us this real-time information about what's working and what's not working. And that kind of goes back to your last question of, when you actually do things and get things out the door, you start getting a lot of insights that can then inform where you want to focus into the next wave.
Absolutely. I think I skipped the 7th question, but I'll just bring this up now. So what's a piece of traditional leadership advice that you believe doesn't necessarily apply to marketing leaders, marketing directors, or CMOs today?
The one piece of advice that I would say to marketers and CMOs today is that you can't measure everything. And marketing as a function, if you look at it over the last 50 years, has really gone through this kind of extreme evolution of, in the early part of the last decade, it was very much into the kind of this brand space and a little bit more of mixed media modeling. And then with the rise of performance marketing, it was very much what I call kind of an immediate dopamine hit, right? You know that when you put in X amount of dollars, it results in Y type of return on ad spend. And I think because of that, there's been this over-indexing to, let's measure every single possible thing that we can. But the reality is that some things cannot be measured, right? Brand cannot be measured. I don't care what any agency or research company says. Like, you could put metrics on it, like branded keyword searches, or you can run branded surveys and then see kind of your awareness and your preference and your consideration. But brand is like love. It is a very abstract thing. People feel a way about your brand or they don't. Right. So I think that there is a little bit of a course correction to some extent, which is that we should measure things, but we don't have to measure everything. And not every single thing will be an immediate ROI. And so just having a little bit of that courage to say, I'm investing on something that will not spit out in 1 month exactly what the return on ad spend was, but it's gonna pay off for us in 6 months or a year. That's something that I think more and more brands have to start embracing.
And I think you answered this question a bit earlier with AI, but what does the future of marketing look like from your perspective?
Well, so this one is interesting, right? I've basically spent my entire career trying to convince brands about the next thing that's going to be happening. So I'll give you a bit of context. 15 years ago, I was at Google. I was in the Philippines. I was trying to work with brands that were basically not spending anything on digital advertising, trying to educate them on what is Google search, how do you have your brand appear there, how do you start doing digital advertising. And then similarly, when I was at Facebook, a lot of the work that I did was on the automation and machine learning tools that they were developing, right? So instead of picking your traditional target demographic, let the system pick for you. Or instead of running your retargeting campaigns, let the system use an algorithm to find the right person who is more likely to complete the action that you're looking for. And in the entire time that I've been sort of trying to push people into embracing what's next, what I've generally found is that people are still kind of neglecting what is today. So instead of worrying about tomorrow, not even fully embracing what was happening today, right? I still see tons and tons of brands making a generic 15 to 30 second TVC and then putting that onto TikTok. And yes, you can put media behind it and you can say that there was a reach curve and put it into your MMM and then it spits something out. But there's no real person who knows that actually works, right? That cannot work, because the moment you see that type of ad on your TikTok, you flip through it right away, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening right now with consumers that many brands are still not taking full advantage of. A lot of the automation tools that I was talking about with Meta and Google, many brands are still doing it in a very traditional way with like their own targeting, their own placements that they want to do. Many brands are still investing on this is controversial. Like I don't really believe in banner ads and programmatic. A lot of brands are still doing a lot of that because it spits out a specific metric. So what I would say is more and more brands, instead of worrying too much about what's happening tomorrow, is there's a lot of things to do today that can improve your business dramatically if you just embrace it and move a little bit faster.
And so we're on to our last question. How would you describe the role of a marketing leader, marketing director, or CMO in one word, and why?
The most important thing for any marketer or marketing team is growth. And for me, there's no other way around it. If you're not growing the business and the brand, you don't have a really good reason to exist. And in some cases, marketers, I think, get lost in this. I mean, and I'm guilty of this as well. Marketers love winning awards. They love doing this like kind of fun, creative stuff and really thinking outside the box. But at the end of the day, you have to be growing the business and the brand. And if you're not doing those things, you're just going to be seen as a cost center, right? The CMO tenure is the shortest of any C-suite. It's 3.2 years. Every CMO, I think, is going through a little bit of this struggle in this transition right now. It's really important for marketers and senior leaders within the marketing function to see themselves as lockstep in line with the business and the goals, and then translating marketing tactics that can then drive that business forward.